buried my son 3 years ago, and after that I thought nothing in this world could break my heart again. But I was wrong. Because that afternoon, out at the dump on the outskirts, I saw an image that, even now, when I tell it, my hand still trembles. A Doberman puppy, barely a month old, was dragging its scrawny body through the stinking pile of trash. Its hind legs lay motionless like dead pieces of wood, being dragged and leaving a long black smear on the slick ground. Its small belly was swollen like a balloon, quivering with each ragged breath. And around it, the laughter of children, holding stones and sticks, as if that pain were some kind of game. I stood stunned, not from disgust, from anger. I heard them laugh. It's just a stray. Just a broken mutt. Just a stray dog, a broken thing to be thrown away. But to me, it wasn't a joke. It was death right there in front of me. And I knew, if I turned my back, it would die there, in the middle of that cruel laughter. If, at this moment, your heart aches with mine, please tell me where you're listening from. Comment below. I want to know which city, which country this voice is reaching. And please hit subscribe, so that little lives like this puppy never get left alone in silence. I hurried toward them. "Hey, stop that!" My voice was hoarse, but it rang out across the scrap metal and broken bottles. The kids jumped and ran off, leaving the dog flattened in the rubbish. I knelt down. When my hand touched its back, the tiny body curled up and trembled. Its coat was smeared with dirt, iron dust and oil. The ribs jutted sharply beneath thin skin. But it was the hard, bloated belly that chilled me the most. I laid my hand lightly on it. It gave a choked little moan, so faint I had to press my ear close to hear. A 1-month-old puppy should be running in circles, falling and getting up, eyes bright with mischief. But this life was different. Its eyes were wide, wet, begging. No anger, no fight, only a silent question. Is there anyone in this world who will stop for me? I heard that question before, in the antiseptic white of a hospital room, in my son's eyes when chest pain crushed him. And today, with that same question, I saw it reflected in the eyes of a tiny dog. I had no choice. I bent down and lifted it out of the garbage. Its body was so light, I almost gasped. Like holding a handful of dry bones. Its breath is as thin as a thread. The smell of trash, of decay, clung to its skin, mixed with the sour breath from its poisoned belly. I nearly vomited, but I pulled it closer to my chest. I remember so clearly the last time I held my son, praying some miracle would keep him alive. The miracle didn't come. This time, I promised myself, I would not let death win again. My 2 cats sat on the car seat, watching me with wide, dark eyes. We still live together, in the quiet house, since my husband and son left one after the other. They're used to my solitude, but that day, the moment they saw me holding the puppy, they seemed to understand. A new chapter had begun. I opened the old car door and set the little life on a worn, thin blanket. It didn't struggle, didn't cry, just breathed fast and looked at me as if pouring the last of its trust into me. I started the engine. The wheels rolled over the rutted road away from the dump. The sky was leaden. Metal clanged behind us like a funeral bell. But I didn't look back. I only knew one thing. I had to get it to a doctor before it was too late. In the rearview mirror, I saw the small head resting on the blanket, eyes half closed as if ready to give up. I gripped the wheel tightly. "Not today," I whispered. "Not on my watch." I drove like a madman. The familiar country road stretched out like it had no end. Every pothole made that tiny body bounce, then slump again. I glanced at the passenger seat and my chest tightened. Its swollen belly heaved with each ragged breath. I was afraid any moment could be its last. When the sign, "Emergency Vet Clinic," appeared, I slammed the brakes so hard the tires screamed. I grabbed it and ran straight inside, ignoring the startled looks. "Please, help him. He can't breathe right. His belly." My voice broke at the reception desk. A nurse rushed over, eyes fixed on the pup's belly. "Bring him back." Now they wrestled him from my arms, laid him on a small stretcher, and disappeared through the door. I stood frozen, my hands still clenched as if I were holding him. My whole body shook. A few minutes later, a doctor came out. A graying man, his gaze sharp with strain. He spoke fast. "We ran an ultrasound." "This pup's belly isn't swollen from worms or food. It's packed." He swallowed trash, cloth, plastic, and something sharp. "I'm afraid it's metal. Infection is already spreading. If we don't operate tonight, he won't make it." The room pitched. His words rang like a death bell over my head. "Metal?" I repeated, like a madman. He nodded and held up the X-ray. On the dark background, the pup's small belly lit up with misshapen forms, a thin nylon sheet, torn fabric, and a long, rusty shard of metal embedded deep in the small intestine. The hazy shadow around it was infection. I put my hand to my mouth. My knees gave out. Before me, it wasn't just a film. It was an indictment of the world's cruelty. A puppy, 1 month old, was forced to eat trash until it swallowed metal, just to survive a few more days. The doctor lowered his voice. "Listen, surgery is risky. He's weak, underweight, and infected. Anesthesia could kill him, but without it, that shard will tear him apart from the inside." I saw his eyes in the dump again. No blame, no anger, only pleading. Those eyes matched my son's in the hospital. The same asking look. "Mom, will you let me go again?" Tears spilled. I looked straight at the doctor, my voice a rasp, almost a whisper. "Do it. Please. I can't let him die like this. Not again." He nodded. "We'll prep the OR." The door closed, carrying Velour's small body inside. I collapsed into a chair, my hands locked so tight my fingernails hurt. I'd left my 2 cats in the car, but in my mind I saw them curled at my feet, waiting with me. The helplessness I'd learned waiting for news of my son in the ER came back, crushing me from the inside out. Time stretched taut. Every overhead announcement with another patient's name made me start. My mind raced. Did I do the right thing? Will he pull through? If he dies, do I even have the strength to go back to that empty house? I closed my eyes and forced a long breath. The dump came back, the kids' laughter, that dragging body. I told myself, no, not this time. He has to live. I will not let death win again. Under the harsh white lights of the hallway, I muttered prayers. Who I prayed to I couldn't say, only that I had poured the last of my faith into that operating room. Then the red light over the door blinked on. The surgery began. The red light above the operating room door flipped on. The door closed with a clack that sounded like a verdict. I sat out in the hall, the hard plastic chair cold against my back, my hands twisted together until they ached and bled. I no longer held Valor in my arms, and that absence felt like it tore me in two. The sounds around me hit my heart like blows. The monitors beep, 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 echoing from inside, metal clinking, clinking, like knives cutting straight into my memory. I closed my eyes, but the tighter I shut them, the more the memories swarmed back. I remembered the last night in the hospital, when my son went in for heart surgery. I sat in a sterile, glaring hallway just like this one, under the same harsh red light, listening to distant machines. I prayed until my voice was raw. But the door that opened that night brought only bad news. My chest clenched. I was terrified history would repeat itself, only this time it was a puppy, just a month old, abandoned by the world, now lying on an operating table on the edge between life and death. Each minute stretched out like an hour. I watched the clock on the wall. The second hand moved in tiny, mocking ticks. I stood up, paced a few steps, then sat again. My legs trembled. There was nowhere to lean. I heard the doctor shout from inside, "Clamp tighter! He's bleeding!" And something fell and rattled onto the stainless tray. I bit my lip until it bled. I didn't know what they were removing from his belly, but I felt the price he had paid. A puppy forced to swallow trash just to survive, now handing his life over to strangers' hands. I whispered as if my voice could pass through the door. "Valor, can you hear me? Don't give up. You've suffered too much. Stay with me." Footsteps hurried down the corridor. A nurse ran past, clutching a sterile pack of sutures, the white gauze stained with fresh blood. I had to lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. How long that wait lasted, I don't know. My head spun as if my whole life had been condensed into this single moment. Then, finally, the red light went out. My heart stopped. The door flew open. The doctor came out, his mask pulled down, sweat on his brow. He held a stainless tray. I looked and nearly vomited on the spot. On the tray were things I could hardly believe. Greasy pieces of plastic, bloody rags, and in the center, a long, sharp piece of metal still slick with dark fluid. I reeled and had to brace myself against the wall. The doctor looked up, his voice rough. "He made it through surgery. We got the trash out. But listen, he's still critical. His back legs didn't respond. They may never work again." Tears spilled hot and raw down my cheeks. I didn't know whether to cry from pain or relief. I stared at that tray of filth, and my chest ached. Did the world really force a little life to survive on this? Plastic, rags, metal. This was not food. This was a death sentence. I asked, trembling, Is he alive?" The doctor nodded, breathing hard. "Yes, for now. He's alive. But the fight is far from over." Those 4 words, "for now," hit me like a punch to the chest. I slumped back into the chair, hands over my face, tears blurring everything. We had won a round in this fight, but I knew we were only at the beginning. The door closed behind the doctor, leaving me with one whisper in my heart. "Valor, you've come through the first darkness. You must keep going. I am still here." After the doctor left, they let me see him for a little while. Valor lay on the recovery table, his small body wrapped in bandages, tubes tangled across him. The monitor by his side clicked out steady beeps, each one a fragile thread holding him to life. I stood there, my hand trembling against the glass, just to be sure he was really breathing. That night, I didn't leave the waiting room. The nurse told me to go home and rest, but I shook my head. I had left once before, and I lost my son forever. I would not let that happen again. I spread my coat over the chair, sat with my back against the wall, eyes fixed on the glowing door of the recovery room. My 2 cats were still in the car out in the lot, but in my mind, they were curled at my feet, keeping me from collapsing. Around midnight, the atmosphere in the hall changed. I heard a frantic rustle from the recovery room, then the shrill cry of an alarm. My heart dropped. I jumped up and ran. Through the little observation window, I saw Valor. His tiny body was convulsing violently, his legs jerking in and out. His eyes rolled back so that only the whites showed. The monitor flared red, drawing jagged lines like knives across the screen. A doctor shouted, "Seizure! Hold him steady!" Nurses grabbed him, while someone pushed medication through the IV. I stood frozen at the door, my fingers pressing the glass so hard my nails bled. Each spasm felt like my heart being torn to pieces. Valor was so small, so weak, his body trembling like a leaf in a storm. I heard a soft, strangled sound escape his throat, so pitiful and desperate. I had heard that sound before, the night my son had his final heart attack, when his mouth tried to form words but could only make ragged breaths. Tears blurred my sight. I pressed my face to the glass and whispered, though no one could hear me, "Valor, please, stay. Don't leave me too. Not you." The convulsions went on and on. For a moment, I thought it was over. The monitor gave one long tone and the line went flat. I dropped my hands, my knees buckled on the cold floor. But then the beeps, beep, beep, came back. His heart had not stopped. The doctor signaled, and the nurses eased their hold. His small body slowly relaxed, breath returned, weak but present. A nurse opened the door and called out, breathless, "He's stable for now." But barely. "He's fighting." I staggered to my feet, my whole body shaking. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to keep my heart from bursting. I wanted to run in and hold him, to shield him from everything, but all I could do was stand outside, pray, and wait. I went back to the chair and collapsed. My hands shook so badly I couldn't even hold the cup of water. I rested my head against the wall, shut my eyes, and a memory slammed into me. The night my husband died, the doctor had said, "He's stable for now." The next day, I lost him. Then my son. The phrase "for now" had become a nightmare, a blade hanging over my head. I wept aloud, sobbing. I vowed quietly, "If you make it through, I will never let you be alone again. I will stay until your last breath." When I looked up, through the small window, Valor lay still, but his chest rose and fell gently, and I realized, even if the whole world had thrown him away, now at least, he had me, a heart left to cling to. 3 days after the seizure, Valor still lay quietly on the recovery pad. The monitor beside him had become my second heartbeat. Each beep was a tap against my chest, reminding me he was still here. I sat by the cage through long nights, whispering the most ordinary things into the air. Whether it was sunny or raining today, how my 2 cats at home were fighting over the old armchair. I don't know if he heard me, but I kept talking. Silence frightened me. Valor rarely opened his eyes, but sometimes in the dark, I would catch that dim look aimed at me, weak but clinging. That gaze kept me sitting, kept me alive. One morning the doctor suggested trying underwater physical therapy. "It might help him," he said. "The water will take the weight off his legs. If there's even a spark left, we'll see it there." I went with them to the therapy room. A shallow pool, the water clear under the lights. Valor was fitted into a supportive vest, and 2 nurses gently lowered him in. The water wrapped his thin body and held him where his legs could not. At first, he panicked. His eyes went wide, his breathing quick. His front legs flailed as if he were sinking. I lunged to the poolside, knelt, and whispered, "It's okay, baby. I'm here. I've got you." His ears twitched, and then, amid the chaos, his front legs began to move in rhythm. Clumsy, shaky, but they moved. My heart leapt. I pressed my face to the glass, my hand on it, saying slowly, "Good boy. That's it. Keep going." Those next moments felt like a battle. Valor whined low, breaths coming fast. Each paddle seemed to use up the last of his strength. His back legs still hung uselessly, suspended like two heavy ropes. My chest ached watching him. Then, something small and miraculous happened. One hind paw twitched, just a tiny jerk, but it stole my breath. The water rippled. I couldn't hold it in. Tears welled up. "That's it!" "You did it, Valor. You moved." The doctor nodded, a brief smile cutting through the night. "That's the first step." He paddled a few more minutes, then went limp, his head dropping into a nurse's hands. I cradled him when they lifted him out, wrapped in a towel. He was drenched and shivering, but his half-open eyes were fixed on me. I hugged him to my chest and whispered, "You're fighting. I see you. I'm not letting go." Back in recovery, Valor curled into the blanket and breathed raggedly. I sat beside him, stroked his wet head, feeling a tangle of pain and sudden brightness, hurting because he struggled, ecstatic because I'd witnessed that small miracle. In that moment, I understood. Healing doesn't come in a day. It comes from tiny twitches, weak paddles, breath by breath. And I'll sit here and wait for each small beat, because each one is a victory. That night, as the hallway lights dimmed, I whispered into his ear, voice cracking, "You're not trash, Valor. You're the light I thought I lost forever." After that first water therapy session, I let myself start to hope. I'd seen Valor's hind foot twitch. Even though it was only a tiny jerk, it felt like a candle flickering in the dark room I'd lived in for so many years. I clung to that light, believing we could get through this. But darkness waits always, and it came back faster than I expected. That night, when the hallway was quiet, I sat beside the recovery cage and listened to Valor's raspy breathing. Suddenly, his breathing changed, fast, shallow, then choking. I leapt up. My heart felt like it stopped. "Doctor!" I shouted. The monitor screamed. The waveform jumped like mad, alarms blazing red. Valor drew in, curled, his belly swelling even more, his eyes wide with pain. A thick, dark fluid spilled from the corner of his mouth, the stench of rot hitting my nose. I stepped back, my world tilted. I knew this was an infection tearing him apart inside. The door flew open, and the doctor and 2 nurses rushed in. "He's crashing! Get the meds!" Someone held his small body down while another pushed the syringe into the trembling IV. I pressed my back to the wall, hands on my head, only able to watch. Valor shook violently. Each seizure seemed to rip a piece out of his soul. I screamed through the chaos, "Fight, Valor! Please fight!" But my voice was swallowed by the machines and the nurse's orders. For a moment, the monitor drew a flat line. 1 beat, but it was enough to break me. I collapsed, hands slamming onto the cold tile floor. Not again, I thought. Am I going to lose another life I love? Then, weak. 1 beep. Then another. I snapped my head up. The monitor hummed back, faint but there. The doctor shouted, "We got him back, barely. Keep the fluids running." They worked nonstop, hands moving quickly and sure. I watched as dark, putrid fluid was suctioned from that small stomach, saw the doctor's sweat-streaked face, heard a nurse whisper, "Come on, little guy." I stood there, sobbing without sound. My heart felt crushed. Because this time, I knew clearly, Valor was not only fighting wounds, he was fighting death again. Finally, his small body began to loosen. The monitor settled into its fragile, even rhythm. The doctor looked up, tired eyes steady. He's alive, but he's on the edge. 1 more episode like that, and we might lose him. I nodded, unable to speak. I stepped forward and laid my trembling hand on his heaving little chest. I whispered, "You hear that, Valor? You scared me half to death. Don't do that again. Please, I can't lose you." Valor didn't open his eyes, but a long, soft breath escaped him, like a faint answer. In that moment, I understood. Each day, each night would be a battle, and I would be here fighting with him until one of us no longer had breath left. In the days after that second crisis, I lived in a state of trembling gratitude. Each morning when I opened my eyes, I rushed to the recovery room just to hear the beeps still sounding. Each night, I sat beside his crate, my hand sliding through the bars to take hold of that little paw. Strange as it was, a 1-month-old puppy, gaunt and sick, he had become the single thing keeping me upright in this world. Then one morning, the doctor smiled gently. "It's time. Let's try walking therapy." I almost cried right there. We took Valor to the rehabilitation room. He was fitted into a supportive sling with 2 nurses holding his balance. His small body trembled, his back legs still felt like lead. I knelt on the floor, looked into those tired, watery eyes, and whispered, "Come to me, baby." Just one step. That's all Valor breathed hard, his front paws scrabbling at the mat. Then, like a small miracle, one hind paw moved. It was only a tiny motion, but the whole room seemed to hold its breath. I felt my heart break open. "Good boy, Valor," I cried, tears sliding down my cheeks. "You're doing it." He kept trying. One step, then he fell. He tried again. Finally, all 4 paws found some shaky coordination, and he stood for a few trembling seconds. My heartbeat fluttered as if the whole world had shrunk to that brightening pair of eyes. The doctor nodded quietly. That's the start of his new life. The week that followed was full of tears and small miracles. I brought Valor to therapy every day. Every step he managed was a victory. Every little lift of his head, every tail wag, those tiny things made my hands shake with happiness. One morning when I came to visit, a family was waiting outside the recovery room. The father was the surgeon who'd saved him, with his wife and 2 small children. I saw a crayon drawing taped to the wall, a little Doberman with strong legs, bright eyes, and a wagging tail. Beneath it, in a child's shaky handwriting, "Get well soon, Sparks." I choked up. Valor wasn't just mine anymore. He had touched the heart of a whole family. The day they officially asked to adopt him, I hugged Valor tight. "You were never trash," I whispered into his ear. "You were always the light. And now you'll have a home." The little girl knelt and offered her tiny hands. Valor, still unsteady, took a few steps toward her. When his nose met her palm, I saw the look I'd been searching for all these years, the look of trust, of life. As they carried him out the door, sunlight poured down and bathed his glossy black coat. Valor stopped, turned his head, and looked at me. Just one look, but I understood. He knew we had saved each other. He had found life again, and I had found a reason to believe in love. I went back to my small house. My 2 cats ran out to greet me. But the room that day did not feel empty anymore. In my mind, Valor kept walking, slow, wobbly, but proud. I wept, not from loss, but because for the first time in many years my heart felt alight again. Valor taught me something I hadn't learned in 55 years. Not everything that is tossed away is worthless. Sometimes from the ashes, a new flame will rise. And with Valor, I watched the light being gathered up again. Maybe right now you're sitting quietly like I was that day, tears running without you noticing. A little dog, once called Garbage, stepped into the sun and became a family's life. Tell me, have you ever rescued a dog? What was that moment like? Is he or she okay? Share your story in the comments. Because sometimes those small stories are the very sparks that warm a whole community's heart.